What's going on, YouTube? Small Door here, and we're going to be doing another tier list. This time, I'm looking for things that I have knowledge in, or things that I have played a lot of, or at least the vast majority of them. So this is going to be a tier list of my personal ranking of all of the Final Fantasy games. I was trying to find a proper tier list that did not have spin-off titles and things like that, because I didn't play a lot of those, but the ones I found that didn't have that were like missing like X2, 13.2, also the remakes of 7. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go with one that just has them all. And it particularly has didn't play or don't know column, so I will be utilizing that. So how am I going to rank these? I'm just going to rank them based off of everything. This is my personal list. Of course, everyone has their favorite Final Fantasy. Everyone has Final Fantasies that they don't like and ones that they do like. A hot debate that I've had growing up ever since the game came out all the way through today is Final Fantasy VIII. I'm one of the people that thinks Final Fantasy VIII is actually a phenomenal game. In some ways better than the original 7. I do still think 7 overall is better than 8, but it's still a great game. But I also agree that 9 is an amazing game as well. So I just thought all 3 of the PS1 mainline games were fantastic. But we'll see. We're going to get through this. Like I said, there's a few on here that I have not played, and there's some of them that I've played very little. Some that I haven't played, but I have multiple friends of mine who have played religiously, and they have they've talked about these games ad nauseum, so I've know pros, cons, and things like that, at least through their lens. Let's get right down to it. Final Fantasy 1. Okay, so I played through, there was a period of time when all of the old Final Fantasies got onto Steam, and this is when I played 1, 2, and 3 for the very first time. I think Final Fantasy 1, if we're ranking it by today's standards, Final Fantasy 1 is honestly not a good game. So I would put it in D. If I'm ranking it for its time, I would probably put it as a B. So it's I don't really, I'm going to rank my list as of today in 2024, July 31st. It's a D. And unfortunately, that's where I'm going to be putting these other games too. Can't tell what the logo is. I want to say is these the logos for 2 and 3? I want to say that's right, because let me look at these other games, because then there's 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's all ranked in order. Okay, so I think 2 is a little better, and then I think 3 is slightly better than 2. Now, I know there was a remake, I believe, of 3 that was like on the DS or something. I'm probably way off, but played the OG versions. I thought 3 was the best of the original 3. It's the most, close, especially, when we're going to get to number 4 here in a second. I think it's fantastic in that sense. It's a huge leap forward from 1 and 2. Like, leaps and bounds forward. It went from a simple game just moving from screen to screen, turn-based, kill monsters, to, it's a real RPG game with like an actual compelling story and everything like that. That being said, by today's standards, this game is still not amazing. It's okay. And that's okay. The game's ancient. But I have a very soft spot for Final Fantasy IV. Obviously, when I played it, I'm an American, so I played this game on the Super Nintendo as Final Fantasy II, what we know it's for. This game had a pretty big impact on me when you are fighting yourself. When Cecil goes to the light. I thought it was the first time, I think, for me in a video game at a young age that I got an emotional reaction out of the game. The game got an emotional reaction out of me. And there's also another part in the game, too, as well, with the mages or whatever they are holding the walls and shit. But the mirror fight, I think, really got me. The story of Cecil, a Dark Knight, becoming a paladin, and all of this kind of stuff. His redemption. That was fantastic. I mean, it was obviously the point. They remade this game. They remade Final Fantasy IV. I never played the remake, so I can't go on that. I played the original. I played it on the Super Nintendo. I played ROMs, emulators, as well as I played it again on Steam. I absolutely love this game. I think Final Fantasy IV is an all-time classic JRPG. It is a true classic. Now, let's talk about Final Fantasy V. I played 5 very late. I don't know if I wanted A or B. It's going to be in one of these two. It's either top B tier or low A tier. I'm going to go with low A for the moment. Is my thing zoomed in too much? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Maybe that's where I should have it at. Let's have it right here. It wasn't available I think the first time Final Fantasy V was available in the US was on the PS1 when they did. You could get, I believe it was Final Fantasy VI with Chrono Trigger, I think. And then the other one was it was Final Fantasy V with another game. I can't remember. And I had them. I had those, and that's the first time I played 5. And because I remember it came with, when you bought them, it also came with a CD that was also the soundtracks to the games, and I absolutely loved it. It was something I thought that was fantastic. But 5 is the job system at its best, especially for its time. It was fantastic. I think 5 is one of the games where the story, in my opinion, isn't the greatest, but the gameplay and the mechanics of the game are so top tier that the story is serviceable, but everything else is so top tier, which is why 5 for me is an A tier game. It is fantastic. But see, now we're getting into things that are quite arguably going to be controversial for some people, because we're going to get into the golden age now. Because if you notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they've just been getting better. And baby, it just gets better. Final Fantasy VI is S tier. It is truly S tier. So, you know how I said 4 gave me an emotional reaction? 6 gave me multiple. And come on, man, what game are you going to be able to suplex a train? This game is insane, dude. It has an incredible soundtrack. It has incredible characters. It has an incredible story. It was the first game that I ever played that felt like it had movie cinematography almost. I mean, obviously I knew the graphics weren't like real life or anything, but the opening sequence, when you're hearing Terra's theme, when you have the Magitech armor guys going, walking, and you're about to move into the intro of the game, and it is just so good. And see, here's the issue that I have with 6 now, though, is that the version that I played on the Super Nintendo was my favorite version. And there's so many different versions of the game where the color's off, the music's off, everything is slightly altered. There's the Super Nintendo version, which I know is not the same as the Famicom version. Then there's the PS1 version. Then there's the Steam version. Then there's the mobile version. There's the remaster version. There's all these different versions, and they're all slightly different in terms of the sounds and all of that kind of stuff. And it's honestly mind-boggling. But at the core, the game is the same. The only version I would say that it's not S tier is the mobile version, because the controls and the way that they did the character art, the sprites, is just ugly. But this game is so good. It's so good. And I'm somebody where don't get me wrong, I can enjoy a good villain that's a relatable villain, a villain that has a backstory, that has, You understand why they become evil, what drove them to become bad and do bad things, why they still think that they're actually on the right side and doing what's right, but it's actually not, kind of thing. But sometimes you just want a villain that is just so wicked evil that there is no explanation. As Michael Caine says as Alfred, some people just want to watch the world burn. And that's Kefka. And Kefka is phenomenal. The clown jester, who is clearly inspired by the Joker. The first time playing this as a kid, and him poisoning the people. Oh my, and he's just laughing his ass off. This dude. All right, I don't want to get too much into it. It's too much time. Final Fantasy VI is incredible. OG7, in my opinion, is right behind it, but I understand why people would put it here. But I think it's not quite as good. I think it's better in a lot of innovative ways, but I think characters and story, I think 6 beats it out. That's just me personally. I understand that's not going to be true for a lot of people. But otherwise, this game is a masterpiece, along with FF8 and FF9. Now, I am putting FF8 below. So all 3 PS1 era mainline titles, I think, are S tier. Now, that is my personal ranking. It would be 7, then 9, then 8. For me, the reason why 8 is below 7 is because going from 7, the materia system, which to this day is God tier. It's a God tier system. Going to a card draw system with the Guardian GP system and all of that kind of stuff, which is very cool. And for people who love stats and being able to min-max and all this kind of stuff. But for the average player, it could be very confusing. And I was still, how old was I when we got 8? When 8 came out? 8 came out in 2000. I was like 11 or 12, right? So this game, I understood. Oh, my PC is going slow. CC cleaner. Story was great. Characters are fantastic. You can say what you want about, about Squall being kind of a, kind of a character, but I don't know, man. I love Zell. I think Zell's fantastic. I really enjoyed Quistis. I love the summons. There's so much about this game that's fantastic. People are going to rage at me. If you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, where's he going to place FF10? One of the most beloved Final Fantasy games of all time. I'm sorry, it's B tier. Yes, I'm putting it below all of these, including 5. I'm being biased here, okay? I'm saying that I'm being biased because I absolutely hated Titus. I hated Waka. I didn't really care for Lulu, other than, maybe, she looks kind of, nice looking character. But like any other guy, yeah, Orin's cool, Yuna's all right, and then Kamari, things like that. But I hated Seymour. I hated the whole well, I shouldn't say I hated. I actually liked the concept of Sin. I wasn't a fan of the Blitzball stuff. I don't know. There's just a lot that I didn't like. That all being said, I'm still putting it into B tier because here's why. Above average. One is the first Final Fantasy with voice acting. The game ran flawlessly. It was obviously the first title on the PS2. It was like FF7 was like groundbreaking, generational groundbreaking. So was FF10 in that regard. And it's still a good story. Overall, the overarching story is very good. And so I put it at very good. It's not amazing, in my opinion. It does have incredible music. To Xanarkand, This Is My Story, or whatever, is still one of, I think it's one of the greatest pieces in Final Fantasy music of all time. But there's just too many of the characters that I didn't like. I really do need to revisit the game, though. I really should revisit the game. It has been a few years since I've played 10. And now I'm going to talk about a game that I have not played, which is FF10-2. One of my best friends, I remember going to his house. He was min-maxing this game, telling me that the story and the characters are basically trash, but the game's mechanics and systems are actually like god tier. So I don't know, take that as you will, you know, and I trust we have very similar tastes in games and how we view games. Not identical or anything, of course, but pretty similar. And I basically took away from what I was watching, what I've seen, how he explained the game to me, is that I would hate pretty much everything about the game except the gameplay. I would really enjoy the gameplay, but hate everything else. So I don't know. That's why I'm just putting it didn't play, didn't know, leaving it at that. The MMO. Okay, so I really don't want to rank it, but I have played FF11. I played it when it first released in the US. I grew up playing EverQuest. I've played so many MMOs. Anyways, I played FF11, and I remembered when it came to the North America, there wasn't any fresh North American servers, or at least that's what I seem to recall. I recall playing the game day one, and there was already max level people running around because of the Japanese servers. And as someone who came from EverQuest, I was on the top guild of my server. Our guild was like rank 5 in the world in terms of like progression and all that kind of stuff. And to me, seeing stuff like that, I was pretty elitist when it came to MMOs. So, you know, I was kind of a douchebag when it came to MMOs. So not being able to have a chance to be at the top sucked. So I was just like, this game sucks. So then I stopped playing it after like a couple weeks. FF12, I'm going to rate the Zodiac Age version because I actually played that version like a year and a half ago. This is A tier. This is an A tier game. This game, in my opinion, is absolutely phenomenal. It is very underrated, and it is clear that Vaughn and Pinello were created specifically because they were told to put in some younger characters and make them the protagonists, the main protagonists, which sucks because their presence in the game is practically pointless. Okay, everybody else is fantastic, you know, so, I mean, I love Balthier, I love Fran, I love Bosch, I love Ash, like, all these characters are great. I love Vossler, I love all the judges and everything, and I love that this game is much more politically intrigued with the way that all works, and, you know, it was their first time really was it the first time? I'm trying to think. There's no real world map. You just kind of go from point to point. And in the Zodiac Age version, the skill system makes so much more sense. It's so much better. And I love that, you know, they obviously took from FF11 of the combat. It's like almost MMOE single player MMOE base, etc., etc. Now these next games I never played. It's the only mainline Final Fantasy I've never played, which is 13. I need to play these because I own them. I'll leave it at that. Let me know where you would rank 13, 13-2, and Lightning Returns. Let me know down in the comments below how good of a game this is. So I remembered hearing from friends and everything. I never had a PS3, so that was part of why I never played it. I didn't have a PS3 or a 360. Excuse me, of that generation. I had basically heard that with 13, the game was extremely linear, forced linear, for like the first 70 to 80% of the game, and then it kind of opened up. But the characters and the music and everything and the combat system and everything was all fantastic. That's pretty much what I've heard. And I've heard actually that the sequels and stuff were even better. Is what I've heard. I don't know. 14, MMO. This game is goated. It's S tier. And here's why. I didn't play 1.0. I started with A Realm Reborn. When A Realm Reborn first launched, stories... It was okay. It's very classic up to, you know, when you beat the ultimate weapon. Yes, this is MMO, but it's very story-heavy MMO. It felt very classic Final Fantasy, like OG classic Final Fantasy. I'm talking like 6 and earlier. Loved it. Heavensward, incredible. Stormblood, incredible. What's after Stormblood? Shadowbringers or whatever? Incredible. I have not played past that. I have not played Endwalker or Into Dawn Trail, but everything everyone says is incredible. I love it. It's essentially you can play it as a single player experience, and I think it's incredible. I mean, hey, you guys talk what you want. It's an MMO, so the ranking place doesn't really matter, because we're playing other things. Here's going to be another super controversial placement. I think 15 is A tier. Now it's bottom A tier, but it's A tier. How could you put 15 in front of 10? And 15 needs to be D tier. 15 is a piece of shit. 15 is the worst Final Fantasy of all time. All right. Why? I ask you why. Okay. I'm looking at the pros of 15. 15, in my opinion, has 4 lead characters. Obviously, Noctis is the primary, but you have Ignis, Gladio, and Promptu. It is a story of 4 brothers, not by blood, but 4 brothers in their journey, essentially their quest, but it's also like a coming of age story, and their brotherhood, their bond together, I think it's extremely powerful. I don't know. For me, the story is actually incredible. I think the story is incredible. The music is incredible. I think the combat was kind of like the groundwork for the best combat system, which is a remake and rebirth. I think it's kind of the groundwork for it. So it's good. I think the game has some major balance issues with melee versus magic, things like that. And there's definitely a lot of flaws with this game. But I'm being biased here. This is my personal bias, guys. I loved 15. I know most people hate this game, right? I could talk about the bad. The way the summon system works is stupid. The fact that the game really only has like 2 cities and there's just open worlds of nothingness and, all of that. But the first time you go to Altissa, I think that's the name of the water city, I was like, oh my God. The Leviathan fight. I'm like, oh my God. There's so much that I enjoyed in this game that I thought was great. There's just too much that I love about the game that it just makes me feel good that I have to place this in A tier. And I know there's a lot wrong with this game, because there is. But if you've ever felt like you were more like, I wish this game would be just a little bit better, it's almost there. If you're on that, please play the Royal Edition, the edition with all the DLC, because the game is much more complete in that sense. All right. And this is where it gets real crazy. I'm putting 16 in the B tier, the most recent mainline game. 16 is B tier. I need to go run because my DoorDash has arrived. I am not going to edit this video. Be right back. All right, we're talking about 16. I know I should edit that out, but, YOLO. It's too much work. I'm lazy. I just do this before I start my streams. Now, there is a lot that's incredible about this game, and it's those points that even bump this up from like a C or a D for me. Because there are some elements of this game that I think make it one of the worst out of all the Final Fantasy games, but then there's some elements that are so goated. I think Soken is the most... I don't know how Square got so lucky with, obviously, Nobuo Uematsu for so many of their games to have some of the greatest music of all time. And then they also have Soken, who is also just as goated. He's about to, obviously does the music for 14, And the team behind 14, obviously, Yoshi P in Creative Business Unit 3 worked on 16. So Soken obviously worked on 16 with music. It's just, when I played the demo, okay, so when you play the demo for 16, I thought this was going to be like one of the greatest games like ever. I was obviously massively disappointed. But the music in this game, beginning to end, is like S+ tier, as well as the majority. Oh, let me just say it this way. All the main characters, voice actors, especially for English, because this is I think the first Final Fantasy that was its native English. And then they translated it to Japanese. It was native English, I think. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's incredible. The voice acting in this game, for at least all the leads, is beyond incredible to me. Now let me talk about why I'm only putting it in as a B. The idea of the combat being very Devil May Cry-like, awesome. Especially coming from, Remake had already come out, and the combat system in Remake, I think, is still the greatest. So, you only play, one character, so, having just this straight up action, it's just a straight action game, having this super high speed, kind of thing, awesome. Now, playing through the game the very first time, you have to play it on, like, the normal difficulty. This was the easiest Final Fantasy that I've ever played. Beginning to end, I've never died. I didn't die a single time in my entire playthrough. I don't even think I got close to dying my entire playthrough. And so the game is just too easy. If you watch some of my tier list of the Souls games, I definitely do put difficulty as a factor. I like games that are hard. People, it's a huge, I don't know how huge, but it's definitely some kind of discourse that goes on online these days about like, well, games should be purely for fun, not stress, not, challenging, it should just be relaxing, blah, blah, blah. That's your opinion, and that's what you like. I play games for the challenge, along with the story and the characters and gameplay and all that kind of stuff. But challenge matters to me. I don't like games that are too easy. If the game is too easy, I'm definitely going to be rating it lower. And Final Fantasy 16, I'm sorry, is just an abysmally easy game. Now, I spent a lot of time, I platinumed the game, I spent so much time in this game because there were a lot of amazing elements. I just didn't want to, I didn't have it in me to go back to start playing through the game again on hardest difficulty and all that kind of stuff, which I know you can do. The game allows you to do all these insane combos and tricks and all these, things with all the elements and things like that, which is great. But there's no need. You don't need to. It's more efficient to be a one-button master in this game, essentially. It really is. And so, but that being said, the combat's not... If the other elements that I'm about to talk about that I think are trash weren't trash, this game would be A or S. Because the combat is still very good. It's just difficulty, whatever. Let's talk about the two big things I think for me that really ruined this game. The fake inventory and item system in the game, an upgrade system with weapons and gear. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't matter. It's just there to be there, but it doesn't matter. You're like, okay, I have great sword. Okay, now I have the materials to upgrade great sword. Okay, now I have the materials to upgrade that. Okay, now I just upgrade that. All right, now I just upgrade that. And you just keep replacing with the same upgrade, and that's it. You're not finding new items. You're not potentially swapping out items and gear to like, okay, maybe in this situation, this is better. You do that with your accessories, but your weapon, and that's all there is too, right? There's just your weapon, your armor, and it's not your armor, it's your belt or whatever, and then your accessory, which a lot of people, I'm sure, use the ring that give you the insane dodge window. Which, you know, you can use it as a crutch to make the game extra easy, but the game is already so easy as it is. I hated that aspect. I'm telling you right now, I hated this aspect of the item progression and the gear progression. I thought it was so bad and extremely pointless. The other thing is the side content. The end game side content is actually very good because then you finally unlock hunts. You finally get some big quests that are actually really meaningful. Like obviously the one with Jill and everything, you know, they're incredible. But the first 80% of the game, the side content is your typical MMO bullshit. And I'm just like, I don't want this in my single player game. This is trash, man. This game had so much potential because the characters are... I love Clive. I love Jill. I mean, everybody loves Sid. You know, I can't remember the dude who has Titan. Krupka, something like that. I can't remember. Oh my god, I can't remember his name. I thought he was cool. You know, the Garuda chick. She was cool. You know, they're all... You know, the guy who had Odin. They're like... Not a huge fan of Ultima, but it was fine, whatever. You know, a lot of the final bosses in Final Fantasies are all kind of obscure. So whatever. But it's like, oh yeah, and Dion, man. Dion's a badass. There's so much to love about the game, but there's so much that pulls it down. And they're core elements of the game, unfortunately. Why? Okay, talk too much about it. Remake. It's not S tier. Remake is B tier. Or A tier, I mean. It's A tier. Top A tier. Remake. Here's why I put it A tier. It has the best combat system in any Final Fantasy game up to its point. Remake is... Rebirth, rather, is better because it's just an improvement on the same system. Only reason I don't put it S tier is because the side content was trash and the game is extremely corridor heavy. Otherwise, it's fantastic. And you got a little bit of, you know, a little bit of the Kingdom Heartsy at the end, you know, with that stuff. But next, let's go to Rebirth. I'm putting Rebirth right here. I spent 150 hours in this game in my first playthrough earlier this year. And I thought it was beyond phenomenal. I loved every second of it. I know some people definitely felt the fatigue with the game and everything like that. I did not. I was enjoying the game through and through. Characters are fantastic. Voice acting is fantastic. Side content's fantastic. All the minigames are fantastic, minus exercise, because, you know, screw exercise and screw that minigame. It's the worst minigame design of all time. If we were ranking the minigames, that minigame is F- tier. It's trash, okay? But aside from that, everything else is just fantastic. There's so much to do, and it's all good. I didn't hate Johnny in this game. People talked about Gungaga is like, man, that's a slog. That section sucks. I loved it. I thought Gungaga was fantastic. I thought it looked great. The music was I think it might have been the best zone music. I just don't know, man. I think Rebirth is another level. For 2024, I'm putting my bid out there that thus far, I actually think truly this could win Game of the Year for 2024. Part of that's because we obviously don't have a goated year like last year, but you know we'll see how it goes. Now, what are these other games on here? I can't tell which one this is. I think that's Ever Crisis. I can't tell. All right, I'm putting this on here. There we go. Dirge of Cerberus. Does anything else need to be said? This game's a piece of shit. All right, we agree? Good. Next. Crisis Core. This icon is clearly, I believe that's the Reunion remake? I'm just going to go base Crisis Core. I put it bottom B tier. And here's why. Almost everything about the game is pretty good. The dialogue is questionable. I was one of those people that always thought, like, why do people care about Zack so much? You know, when the OG7, you know, he's a big part of Cloud's history, but at the end of the day, he's not. Was he really in the game that much to really warrant such a huge cult following? For them to make an entire game with Zack as the main character. And I always looked at it as, yeah, you're playing as Zack, but you're mainly playing to see how things became the way they are when you play 7, right? Why did Sephiroth go crazy? Like, dive deeper more into that. You learn a lot, obviously, in the OG7 game, but the gameplay in this game is absolute trash. It is truly trashed here, the gameplay. And then, like I said, the dialogue's pretty You know, obviously this is a handheld game, but it's Final Fantasy VII. The characters are cool. You get to see a Sephiroth as a good guy. Angeal is actually cool. I like Genesis. I know a lot of people don't. I don't know, man. It's got one of the coolest cutscenes ever, in my opinion. That cutscene, Genesis versus Sephiroth, dude, that cutscene's badass. Even on the PSP version. Cutscene's sick. And you have like one of the most goated final scenes with Zack. You know, his last stand. I really enjoyed that. A lot. But the gameplay and the dialogue is just so bad that I can't put it higher than B, man. Mainly in gameplay. Okay, I can't tell what this is. Does that say Ever Crisis? I think it does. I haven't played it, so I'm gonna put it down there. What the hell is this? Final Fantasy VII something. I don't know what that is either. Tactics. That's where it belongs, baby. Give me a 60 FPS remaster on modern systems, please. Give it to me. Give it to me now. I don't need to even talk about this game, because if you know Tactics, you just know this game is goated, okay? It is truly one of the greatest games of all time. So for me, on my S tier list, Final Fantasy VI, Tactics, and OG7 would also be in like my top 20 of just video games of all time. The rest of them, like Remake or even Rebirth, 9, 8, they wouldn't even make my top 20 of video games. Obviously, they do for Final Fantasy, but I'm leaving Tactics right there. It's goated. I played Tactics Advanced, but I didn't complete it because I did not like the judge system really at all. And I was starting to get to that point where I just don't like handhelds, man. Like, I played Crisis Core on the PSP, and I literally bought the PSP just for Crisis Core. And then I did play the Tactics remake thing on there. But Tactics Advanced, I'm just like, I don't know, man. War of the Lions, I'm surprised they did put this on here. This version's not as good. It's really not. Now, it fixes a lot of dialogue, but it runs like trash on the PSP. Type 0 I never played. I have no idea what that is. Dissidia never played. A lot of these I've never played. What the hell is this? I have no idea what that even is. I have no idea what that is. Crystal Chronicles. I have played this, and I beat this game. Me and my friends played this game, dude. So, I honestly can't really tell you too much about the game, other than it was a 4-player co-op game on the GameCube. And me and my buddies had a lot of fun with this game, actually. I've been meaning to put those there, okay? 16 is going to be my top B tier, most likely. Especially because I don't know what the hell these other... I've always wanted to play World of Final Fantasy. Never played it. I never played these Chocobo racing games. And Stranger of Paradise is on my rainy day list to play. I really want to play this game, but there's always something else that keeps coming up. So this is my list, guys. I know I'm like been rushing the end. My video's at 40 minutes, so I am just going to leave it at that, guys. This is my list. Tell me what you agree with, disagree with, why you agree, why you disagree. But let me know down in the comments below, man. I really want to hear your thoughts on 13 because it's the only mainline game I never played. So let me know down below, guys. Like, subscribe, it really helps the algorithm, and I will see you guys later.